welcome to The Real Study with your hosts, MrSniDBitS,
I was pleasantly surprised.
BlackGirlMarvel,
I cried laughing. That was hilarious.
TylertheFilmmaker.
It's like so much depth. It's like nowadays it's, you got A shot, B shot.
Allthemoviethings.
There's some great wide shots in this.
JeannineDaBean.
Each other, they just kind of look like they were having fun and doing their own thing.
Produced by Hyena. And me, The Real Study movie voice guy.
But this was the first time where I got to see it told in a way where I was like, oh man.
Let's go to the poster wall.
Good evening and welcome to The Real Study. My name is MrSniDBitS, and not, as always, is BlackGirlMarvel with me. Strangely, this is the fourth episode she's never been in, but we do have great panelists with us. All the movie things here with me, and of course, JeannineDaBean. How are you guys doing this evening?
Doing good.
Doing great. Yeah.
Awesome.
A little emotional after these movies, but
Yeah.
That's fair.
yeah.
That's fair.
So
We had a few technical difficulties, so thank you for bearing with us for the live show. Those of you that aren't live, you won't care anyway, so we'll move on. We are going to be doing two biopics or biopics. I know there's a lot of argument about how that's said. We'll just go with biopics, since it is short for biography. That said, oh no, I just saw that my wife said Chris Christopherson just died. Literally.
oh my goodness.
Gosh.
That was literally live. I'm sorry to bring that news to
What
the
is going
world,
on?
but yeah, it is a week with Maggie Smith going.
Yeah.
Well, then recently James Earl Jones. And
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Yes.
what?
It's
Yeah. No.
happening.
And but we're also of an era that is from film of a
Yeah.
bygone era. Those people are all getting older for us, and it's hard. I think
Wow.
being in your 40s and 50s,
Yeah.
you start going, oh crap, all these people are passing.
Yeah.
Anyway, that said, we are going to be, our hearts do go out to Chris's family and to everyone who was a fan. So want to mention that. That said, we are going to go into two films, two biopics about musicians, one about Queen and Freddie Mercury, and then one about Elton John, or Reginald, if you know his real name. And then we, of course, have the news, and we have our real roundup that we'll do here in just a minute. And then we have the pre-review returning for the first time this season. I'm excited because I got to host it this time. We'll see what you guys think of that. That said, we're going to go right into the real roundup. I know, Brian, you said you saw nothing new this week, but Janine, you saw the suspense?
The substance.
The substance.
The substance. Why did I
Yeah.
say suspense?
I've been wanting to see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
the-
tell us
Man.
about substance.
Yeah, so I was already a fan of Coralie Fargeet. I saw her rape revenge film Revenge. Being a filmmaker, she handled that film really well in terms of the subject matter, really filmed that with a lot of sensitivity and gave her female character a lot of empowering moments. Also, the actress talked a lot about feeling very safe with her. So I was really looking forward to see her helm another film that dealt with, female issues in the themes of aging. And a lot of the elements that I loved from Revenge were prevalent in the substance. So she uses a lot of bright poppy colors. She purposely uses an exaggerated, heightened amount of gore, just to kind of give it this fantastical feel. So there's some really insane fun body horror in the film. If I were to give it kind of a broad comparison, it would be like The Thing / The Fly meets Death Becomes Her.
Son of a bitch.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a combination.
The
I
film
heard it gets
that
more and more
raw,
bonkers.
it
it's-
does. It
Yeah.
does. So yeah, Demi Moore is great as this fitness star who, upon turning 50, kind of is thrust out of the spotlight when somebody recommends this substance to her that will help her with the aging process. She takes it and things just get kind of crazy from there.
Wow.
But yeah, a lot of elements that I loved from Coralie Fargeet's other film were really in this film as well. She uses a lot of kind of close-up camera work. I think, Brian, you'll love the camera work in this film. There's a lot of, because there's a lot of physical body horror, she also
Yeah.
does these really close-up shots of people's mouths eating really sloppily or putting
uh-huh.
on lipstick, and you see every line
Nice.
and pore and brown tooth. So that in and of itself feels like a type of body horror,
Yeah,
which is really
totally.
interesting. There's a lot of really cool angles, and some really interesting camera work, like a billboard outside the window, almost kind of like a younger pretty girl almost staring in and like antagonizing Demi Moore.
Oh wow.
So really
Yeah.
fun shots like that. So this film does a lot of really interesting things with the camera, considering there's not a ton of dialogue. Demi Moore has to
Mm.
sell a lot with her physicality, and she does an incredible
Mhm.
job with that. Margaret Qualley is also great playing into this kind of ego. And it just ends up being this really great reminder that it's the responsibility of your younger self to take care of your older self. Like it can't go the other way around.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
yeah, some
Yeah.
really
Good point.
a really fun, crazy, insane way to illustrate the really realistic
Yeah.
themes of how aging affects women and how society sees aging women. So really, really had a lot of fun
Yeah.
with the substance.
I
The
see one
more
of
I
the
hear about it,
poster.
the more I
Oh,
want
I'm
to see
sorry.
it. Like,
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
I
especially
agree with you,
like
Brian.
everyone says it keeps getting more like as time goes
it
on, it
does.
gets just more and more insane. Like, yeah.
It does, yes.
Like, oh my
It's
God.
crazy.
I love it.
Yes, in
Yeah.
this weird
Oh.
heightened version of LA. Like, yeah, it's so
Oh
good.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
Interesting.
my God. Yeah.
I see the poster. It says absolutely fucking insane. So I think that's an appropriate
Yeah.
quote.
Like
Yeah,
people are
it
just
is.
like, what did I just watch? Like, yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
no,
Okay.
it's nuts.
I
It's
can get
nuts.
into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also got to see a few movies this week. There were a few, but the one I want to talk about the most is actually Inside Out 2. I got to see
Okay.
that on
Mm.
Disney Plus, and I was prepared for it to be as good as the original. And I was shocked that it was. It was Pixar, so like they always seem to deliver even on their sequels. This one for me, I'm a person with anxiety, diagnosed anxiety. So when I saw that whole sequence with anxiety going through a panic attack, man, it was like a 1-2 punch to the gut, and I was like, they nailed this. This is what it feels like to be a person going through a panic attack from the inside, if you will.
Right.
Out. Sorry, terrible. So I
Tyler's not
I
here,
really
yeah.
did. I know somebody has to fill in the spot for Tyler. He will be back next week. He had a work emergency that happened. And Law should be back next week. And we will be doing horror as we always do. I just wanted to touch on that.
Yes.
But yes, for me, I would say it's a perfect pairing. I actually watched this going as we got towards the end of the film. I was like, wow, are they gonna do like 2, 3, 4, 5? And when we get to 5, it's Riley in her 20s going through stuff, and we get to get into more adult theme. Because to me, it would be great. Just stick with Riley throughout her life, and let's see 6 of them, one for every decade or something like that. As much as that might be ridiculous, I think
Goes
that
through
it would
midlife
be worth.
crisis.
Yes, a midlife crisis inside, right?
Yeah.
Anger would be a lot of that, right? Anger would have a big role in that episode or that
It took
episode.
me a long time into settling into enjoying Inside Out because I was just so pissed at sadness the whole time. Like,
really? Okay.
Phyllis, stop touching everything. You're making Riley cry and embarrassing her in front of everybody. So, like, I spent the first hour just like hating sadness for making poor Riley cry.
Weird. Yeah. No. See, I hate Joy. The whole like both movies. I'm just like, Joy, get your act together, man. Like you are screwing things up, man.
But yes, I get both sides of that. But for me, I was always just like, you're hurting this poor little girl.
That's so funny. Yeah.
Yes, but by the end,
that too.
Yes, so on
like,
subsequent rewatches, you kind of understand that that's just the complexity of emotions, that sadness peppers into happy things because happy memories turn sad when you miss that moment. So I haven't seen Inside Out 2, but it was very much like I had a very contentious relationship with Inside Out for a long time. That
So I think you'll feel the same way about anxiety that you did about sadness, because anxiety is the antagonist, and you're gonna definitely just be like, but you want to go through that same journey, and it's very much like episode 7 and episode 4 of Star Wars. Like they're
funny.
They feel the same, but they're different. It's the same thing. It's the same story, but again in a different way. So,
and I have since kind of struggled with anxiety more lately, so I feel like I will be able to relate to it more. Like I've actually dealt with anxiety attacks in recent months. So
easy.
yeah, definitely something I feel like I will be able to be more open to as opposed to
Yeah,
when
so
I
definitely
watched the
jump
first
into a
one.
movie about anxiety.
That's like
Right?
all about
Great.
how
No, there was,
anxiety just
to be
ravages
fair,
you.
no,
Yeah, I just want to watch
that's
it
a
in
great
the movie
point,
now.
Brian. It really
Yeah.
is absolutely a great point. But
Like,
I think that this was there's a healing factor though, because it it points you in a direction that's really positive. So I can't, I
Yeah,
don't know.
that's
I
true.
don't fault it for being about anxiety because it will get you
Right.
riled up. But I still, I see your point because
Yeah.
Yeah.
you might worry because I did knowing anxiety was in it when I saw the preview. I was like,
You're like, I live
I wanna
with
do this
it.
to
I
myself?
lived this.
but at the same time, it made me have respect for my own anxiety, and I was able to go,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
it's something for me, not against me. If you will.
Right. Yeah,
So,
like it's just like fear.
right.
Fear is a thing that's actually there to help us and protect us. And, it's just
Yeah,
trying to
an
recognize, is
instinctual
it?
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And trying to recognize, is this legitimate though? Like, is there any reason for
Yeah.
this fear to come in there? But yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. It's
I reckon.
unregulated emotions that
Yeah,
are a
yeah.
problem. So,
Yeah.
and I think these movies teach that, even if you just take the first one, it does
Yeah.
go into it. We do have several people showing up in the chat. Captain Salty Dog stopped by to say hi. Of course, Batsy was here.
Oh, yeah.
We've got Fame. The Fame itself is here saying hi also. I just wanted to let you guys know that.
She'll be in Portland soon.
Nice. That's awesome.
She has a friend who, So I actually met up with her last time she was here in Portland. So I've actually got to see some real life people.
Yeah.
So this is a social media person you met in person.
Yes.
That's becoming more and more common, right?
Yeah.
Yay. That's cool.
Sorry, my Pepsi. My wild cherry diet Pepsi, if I want to scare the universe.
Diet.
Well, I was telling Brian this before the show. It's actually from a movie, and it's not because of it was because of the movie when I was a kid, because you'd like that, you do that. But now I have an acquired taste, and I need to drink diet soda instead of real soda, so I drink it. But it's from Pump Up the Volume. It was what Hard Harry drank in Pump Up the Volume. And I was 14 when that came out. And I was like, yes, Hard Harry, it's amazing. So he was my dude. But he was like a young Jack Nicholson. Like, how would you not love Hard? That's Christian Slater for you. Anyway, I digress. We do have a couple other segments. We are going to go into the news. I know Janine has some news that she wanted to go through, and we will move over to the news now.
Now it's time for the real news.
And go ahead, Janine. You said you had a couple different stories that you came to today.
Well, yeah. Obviously, we had the passing of Maggie Smith. She was 89. She would have been 90 this December. So just
so
a
close.
long, amazing career, 2 Oscars. A lot of stage work. I saw some beautiful posts from, her Harry Potter cast. I saw a post from Whoopi Goldberg. Just so many people who, worked with her and talked about how funny she was. Tom Felton talked about how protective she was of all the children on the set and things like that. So yeah, just really sad to see this figure who we know from so many iconic things, who we've kind of lived with. You just don't think about them not being around. And so when they're not, it's sad.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I feel like she was one of those too that didn't matter what she was in. It could have been a comedy or drama or anything. She added more legitimacy to a film in a lot of ways. She's one of those, it's like throw Michael Caine in there and he adds something to it,
Yeah.
She's throw Maggie Smith in there. Yeah. You're like, oh, this is
Yes. Yeah.
Sister Act is a good point. She brought she made you go, oh, there's nuns in this. Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
So totally.
So, yeah.
The joy of following people who do pass when they're actors is we get their body of work still, and we can always go back and re-enjoy that. And I do appreciate that about being a film fan. Is that
100%. And you seek out things that maybe you hadn't seen of theirs as well.
Oh yeah.
So,
right.
So definitely I'm wanting to see a lot of her stuff when she was younger that I hadn't seen. So
that kind of reminds me of when well, it kind of relates to the two films, a little bit, certain things come out, or a passing of a music artist, their albums and their songs just shoot back up to the top of the charts again, because people want to consume the stuff they've created, again. So I think it's the same thing with when actors pass.
Yeah.
So that brings up
See their body
that brings up a point. When I used to work at Hollywood Video, we would actually put their movies up on the board behind us and be like, "Here's all the movies." And part of me like loved that, and then part of me
Yeah.
hated it because
Yeah.
I knew we weren't doing it for the right reasons. Like we were doing it to
Right.
sell the movies,
Yeah.
not because
Yeah.
we were like
Yeah, I
celebrate the
know.
actor.
Yeah.
I still.
But the idea of kind of
course I do.
showcasing them is obviously kind
Yeah.
of cool
Yeah.
as well.
Right.
Yeah.
This is why I think I avoid it on TikTok as well. Like I want to say something, but then I feel like it would just be for views. Like, and I'm just like, that
Right.
feels weird. So
Yeah, you got to jump
Um,
on this thing because it just happened. So I know it's
Right.
gonna like, yeah.
but with somebody's death, that feels really weird and tainted. But that's me. I'm not judging people that do it because some people are just, that's
Oh,
how
yeah.
they deal with it. So
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah.
And also, like,
Yeah.
you don't necessarily know, like, hopefully that's not the like lens that they're looking at it through of like, oh, this is gonna get me, this is gonna go viral or it's gonna, boost me or in some way. Hopefully that they're coming up from a thing of like honoring the person rather than just, views.
Yeah.
So
Agreed. And you can kind of tell
Yeah.
with tone. I know that
yeah. Mhm.
Fat Movie Dad is one of my mutuals, and he does it, but he's very
Yeah, he's
kind, and
actually-
he has
yeah,
a very
yeah, yeah.
solemn voice about it. So.
Yeah, he
yeah.
does a good job. Yeah.
And he just does movies, everything. So it's kind of like
Right.
part of his. It would be weird if he didn't do it. So
Yeah.
just movie news guy. Did you have any more news for us? Jeannie?
Just a recent story I heard. This is actually something this actor's been doing since 2021, but I guess Michael Sheen is a not-for-profit actor. So everything he makes, he
What?
donates to charity.
I did hear that. Yes.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So I saw that story today and I thought that was really cool. Apparently in 2021, like was the first time he did it. He saw this organization, this UK organization, I think it's called Homeless World Cup. They lost their $2 million worth of funding. They're an organization that calls attention to homelessness. And when they lost that funding, he sold his UK home and his US home to fund them.
my
And he said
God.
like it was a struggle, but kind of on the other side of that, it felt really good. And he said as
Yeah.
long as he kept working and he kept, having money coming in, he would be okay.
Mhm.
So yeah, everything he earns,
Oh my God.
he donates to charity. Isn't that
So he managed to
cool?
find a level where he's successful
Yes.
and
so
just
he can
stays
kind of
there and just
stays
gives the
there
rest.
and then gives so now
That's
I have
great.
some not so weird
Wow.
reasons to watch Underworld Rise of the
Right.
Vikings a couple extra times in a
So
year.
many
Yeah,
people just
that's
underrated
funny.
him in those movies. Like I think
Oh,
he was
yeah,
what
yeah.
he's,
He's really-
what made those movies. I think at least the early,
Yeah.
the first two. And I think they failed after that because he's not in them. But that's just my opinion. Anyway, any other news, or do we have time for the pre-review at this point?
I had one thing that I read recently.
Sure, go for it.
So Sam Mendes has been working on Beatles film or films, I think is this whole thing. And Sam Mendes works a lot with Roger Deakins. So the talk is that he's trying to get Roger to jump on these Beatles movies. So
Oh,
I'm pretty excited. To
okay.
Yeah.
Now,
It should be.
I have to ask because that begs a question, because most of the Beatles are half the Beatles are gone and half the Beatles
Yeah.
are quite old.
Yes.
So I assume this isn't going to be a ton of interviews. If anything, maybe like an interview. With
No,
Paul
it won't be a
McCartney.
doc. It's not
Okay.
documentary. It's
So
it
it's a
falls in line with-
film. Okay, so
It'll
it's
be
a
a biopic.
biopic.
Yeah,
Okay.
or pics. So I
Ooh.
think it's gonna be multiple films. If
Oh.
I may have misread that, but I'm pretty sure it's gonna be
Interesting.
multiple.
Like a Defenders thing where you get like George, Paul, and then
Yeah,
like they
and
come
then
together as a
And
Beatles.
then it
Beatles-
kind of comes
the
together.
Beatles universe, and then they assemble, and then
I love it.
they take them.
You gotta have the the Beatles
Okay.
breakup movie. That'll be like 10 in,
Yeah.
right? Right, and then solo careers.
Solo projects.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But,
Well, that's very
yeah.
fitting.
Hopefully they
to
get
what we're
Deakins
discussing.
on there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot more on, especially on Instagram. I follow the channels that cover Jeekins a lot more, and he's got some pretty great things to say. I see why
Yeah.
you're like an Uber fan. So
Mhm. Yeah.
let's see. So we do have the pre-review, unless Janine, I don't want to. If you have another story, okay, just want to make sure. So we are going to hit the pre-review. If you are on the panel, of course, this gives you a break, so don't not take advantage. We'll be right back. Welcome to the pre-review, brought to you by The Real Study. I'm MrSniDBitS, and since I haven't seen most of these movies before, I won't be rating the films themselves. That would be ridiculous. There's of course one exception. Instead, I'm going to rate my excitement level for the films. So I'm going to be covering most of the movies dropping in October in theaters, and then a few movies on streaming. Starting off in theaters, October 4th, we have Joker, Folie à Deux. by Warner Brothers, starring Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga. Watching this preview, it is of course a sequel to the original Joker. I'm pretty excited for this. It looks pretty great. I enjoyed the first one. That's not for everybody. The next film coming out is A Different Man, A24 film starring Sebastian Stan and Adam Pearson. I'm pretty excited for this film. I'm giving it a 10 out of 10 excitement level because it just looks great. Dark comedy. It's definitely touching on things that are going to make people uncomfortable. The next movie is The Outrun. This is a Sony Picture Classics. It stars Saoirse Ronan. It does deal with some heavier material. She's an alcoholic who's trying to go through sobriety and trying to re-navigate her life. Pretty excited for this one. 8 out of 10, looks pretty good. On October 11th, we have The Apprentice, another film starring Sebastian Stan. This also stars Jeremy Strong, and this is supposed to be a story about a young Donald Trump. So we'll see. I'm sort of excited about this just because I think Sebastian Stan is really showing his chops, and I'm excited to see what he can do with it, giving this a 7 out of 10. The next movie coming out is Saturday Night from Broadway Studio, also SNL Studio. Now, this is a Jason Reitman film, and it has what I would consider to be kind of a new ensemble cast. I don't recognize most everybody in this film, but I get the feeling there's going to be a lot of names that are going to come out of this movie. This is, of course, the first night of Saturday Night Live back in the 1970s, and this is how things went before the show came to air. Pretty excited. 10 out of 10. The next movie is Terrifier 3. Now, of course, this is the third film in the Terrifier series. This is an extremely gory, raunchy series, not for everyone. Brought to you by Bloody Disgusting. This stars Lauren Lavera, David Howard Thornton, and Jason Patric is in Terrifier 3. My excitement level is really low because I'm not into overly gory films, and I haven't even seen Terrifier 1 or 2, so I'm giving this a 4 out of 10. The next movie is Piece by Piece. This is actually a strange one. This is the autobiography of Pharrell Williams, but done in 100% Lego form. Cool preview, cool concept. I'm not that excited. I'm going to give this a 4 out of 10. Coming October 18th, though, is a movie that I'm pretty darn excited about. We Live in Time, another A24 film. If you know me, I'm pretty fond of A24. This one stars Florence Pugh and Andrew Garfield. The preview had me in tears because this looks so emotional and so raw. Their chemistry is phenomenal. 10 out of 10. Really excited for this one. The next one is Smile 2 from Paramount Pictures. This is Kyle Gallner and Naomi Scott. I didn't even like the first one that much, so my excitement level for this is really low. Watching the preview, I kind of went, okay, 1 out of 10 excitement. The next one, though, is a Cate Blanchett, Charles Dance film. There's some other actors in there, but they're the two big names. It's called Rumors, and it's from Bleecker Street. This is a really quirky film. This felt very Naked Lunch, very Terry Gilliam in its approach. Essentially, it's the G7 summit, and all of the 7 major nations' leaders are having dinner in a gazebo, and things start to go really, really weird. You're going to have to watch this preview to understand this movie, but I thought it looked ridiculous. I'm 8 out of 10 excited. On October 25th, we have Venom: The Last Dance dropping from Columbia Pictures and Marvel Entertainment. This, of course, stars Tom Hardy, and Juno Temple will be in this one. I really didn't like the first two at all. I'm not excited for this one, so 2 out of 10. This next movie I actually have seen. It's only because I got an early screener for the film, so it's not like the movie's out. This is from Vertical Entertainment called Your Monster. This was a fantastic film. I give this an 8 out of 10. Melissa Barrera is really showing her ability to have a wide range from comedy, drama, sarcasm, you name it. She's really nailing it down. And then Tommy Dewey, who I never recognized before this, actually did the short film and played Monster really, really well. So check this one out. The last film on the pre-review that's releasing in theaters is Conclave. This is a Focus Features film starring Ralph Fiennes, Stanley Tucci, John Lithgow, and Isabella Rossellini. I don't really know what else I have to say other than that's a hell of a cast. Now, this is talking about the replacement of the Pope, and so it's a whole movie and story about what it takes to replace the Pope, and it's got twists and turns and stabbing people in the back, you name it, it's all over the place. Ultimately, preview looked okay. I'll probably watch it, but it's 6 out of 10 excitement for me, so I'm not sure. For streaming this month, we've got some movies releasing on Max. So we've got Salem's Lot. It looks like a remake of the Stephen King book turned movie. That's October 3rd. We've got Tuesday, which is coming out October 11th. That's an A24 film. Maxine is finally dropping for streaming, so you can watch that on October 18th on Max. That's, of course, the third film in the Ty West trilogy. Then we've got Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 3 coming October 21st. I still haven't seen the first two. We've got Trap starring Josh Hartnett that comes out October 25th. For Netflix, we've got Bad Boys Ride or Die coming out October 8th, and of course, Kung Fu Panda on the 21st. Finally, we've got the Prime movies that are coming out. We've got Challengers, that's the Zendaya film. We've got House of the Spoils, which is a new horror film. And then we've got Brothers, which looks like it stars Josh Brolin. That's going to do it for the pre-review this month. Please check us out next month for the movies coming out in November. Check out every episode of The Real Study. We are live every Sunday, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. And you can check us out on almost every platform, whether it be podcast, social media, we're pretty much everywhere. All right, and so that was the pre-review. Thank you, MrSniDBitS. Yeah, that's weird. I used to have other people do the previews, so it's odd to have me doing it. But I did have a good time. Yeah. Thank you to me. Some good movies coming out, it looks like. So we've got something to look forward to.
A lot.
Janine, you were able to see? Yeah, not a lot. I was shocked. I
hear there's only like 2 coming to the theaters.
And one of them, one I didn't even mention because I couldn't even find a preview for it. So I'm like, how do I decide if I want to see this if I can't even? Yeah, I know. My wife's making fun of the way I said Josh Brolin at the end there. I forgot he was in it, and my brain erupted into this Josh Brolin.
Josh.
That guy. No, I do like Josh Brolin. I think he's pretty good actor.
Yeah.
All right. So we do have 2 movies we're going to be talking about.
Not going to be Green Lantern.
No.
But I do
but we
like.
still have Nathan Fillion being Green Lantern. So.
But he is a Green Lantern. He's going to be a specific. So don't get me started on all this comic nerd stuff. But he's going to play a certain Green Lantern where Josh was in the running for Hal Jordan Green Lantern, but now it's Kyle Chandler, I believe, is who is cast as it. Yeah.
If they do the Green Lantern stuff right, it's really good. It's cops in space. You can't.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a series, so I think that's a good start.
Right there. Time to flesh things out. And,
Plus, it's a lot. There's a lot of stuff to
lore
explain.
And characters.
Going through the rings, right? Just the rings alone.
Yeah, and how the rings work, and and just the spectrum of colors in the ring because they're all different,
and how those rings affect other people, like Superman or Supergirl getting the ring, can really wreak some havoc on people.
So
I don't know.
John Stewart will be the character John Stewart, not
Jon.
Yes, exactly. He'll be involved too. So I think there's still talks about who's going to play.
Yeah, I think I saw 2 actors in the running.
Yeah, there's 2.
He's doing Comedy Central 1 a week. I don't think he has time to, get into the superhero movie.
Yeah. Plus he's a little too white to play.
Oh, way too white.
So
very too white.
Yeah,
just a little bit.
Yeah.
So our first film of this evening is going to be Bohemian Rhapsody, and this is, of course, the biopic of mostly Freddie Mercury, and of course, you can't have Freddie Mercury without the adjacent Queen members, so they are in there as well. And this was my first time seeing it before the show. How about you guys?
I'd seen it.
Second time.
So okay, so you both had seen it. So why don't I go first then, since that's kind of the tradition. I think Rami Malek is brilliant. I think he did a really fantastic job. He got mannerisms, speech, everything. Really, really nailed it down. I think where there's a loss in the film is that it's Freddie singing. Now I know that that's terrible because, of course, I want to hear Freddie sing. I want to hear Queen, but I think that you can tell that it's not Rami singing, and that for me kind of pulls me out of harder.
It's hard to replicate
that voice.
It is, and I agree. But I would almost rather him do his get a singer that can do the best they can and try.
And then
and we'll of course talk about that in a little bit about the other movie. But that was hard for me. The other part that was difficult for me, and then I'll get into my positives because I want to leave it on a positive note because it is a good movie about Freddie Mercury. But there were a lot of negative tones that just kind of sat. And it didn't feel like they ever did anything with them. They just painted him kind of in a negative light here or there, or skipped over some of the bigger parts of his life. It felt like an abridged version, essentially, of his life. And I was like, man, there's so much more meat and bones. You made it PG-13, which means you're going to take an R-rated life and tone it to PG-13, which means you're going to lose stuff. Not everything. It's not the whole life, obviously, but something.
You're like forced to hold back
Right,
with things.
right.
like
Yeah.
You can't get into
Water it down a little bit.
his sexual orientation that he started to discover later in life, and
Mhm.
they touch on it, but I feel like they really could have gotten further into the relationships, and the AIDS epidemic felt like it was just kind of avoided.
Yeah, it was like
in
a
a weird
footnote.
way.
It's like, oh
Yeah.
there's
Yeah,
remember
you
the
know,
AIDS started here? Yeah.
even though the movie surrounded the Band-Aid concert, like it's still, that wasn't about AIDS, but it's still like it was. There's still a lot of talk at the time. I don't know. I was alive at the time, so I remember people talking
Yeah.
about this stuff, and it
Mhm.
was such a conversation, except with those that mattered. And so to
Right.
again in a movie, it felt very Oppenheimer, where they're like, "Here's the subject matter.
Right.
We're not going to talk about it," and they just kind of set it aside.
Mhm.
So those are my biggest complaints. I loved the like recording scenes, and like seeing how they came up with Bohemian Rhapsody and all that was all
All the
really fantastic.
experimentation and
Right.
Yeah.
The meeting the band, that kind of stuff I enjoyed. So, but I
Mhm.
don't want to steal all the whole film here. So, Brian,
Yeah.
what do you think of Bohemian Rhapsody?
So the first time I saw it, I like really loved it. I was like 5 stars, but then it like started getting, as time went on, it's really gotten kind of like some like a bad rap in a lot of ways. Like if you look at the like ratings just on Letterboxd alone, they're all over the place. I mean, some people like gave it like literally like half a star, and then there's other people like gave it 5 stars. So it's and everything in between. It's kind of
Yeah.
wild how people have like responded to this film. And I actually like lowered my rating recently after this watch, because I was really like trying to dig into like what are those things, what was I missing, perhaps. And it was like for me too, when I watch a film, and if it does make me like emotional, I'll 9 times out of 10 give it extra kudos because of that, because
Yeah.
I was really connecting with it.
Mhm.
But that also makes me overlook certain things. And one thing too is it's Bryan Singer who directed it, so that's already kind of a you're like, damn it. Yeah. There are some things too, like like the PG-13 thing is an element, where it's just like, could have really gone a little, just dug a little deeper, I think. I think they're really trying to hit like those like highlight moments. It's more like a highlight reel movie in a lot of ways.
And giving you kind of the stereotypical biopic,
Yeah.
moments.
Yeah, and there are those like, I enjoyed this personally, but it is kind of like on the nose. I mean, Mike Myers plays, the music executive,
and says no one will be bobbing their heads in their cars.
It's like, and the camera's
moment.
moving in on him on that part too. It's like, all right, we get it.
Okay.
Yeah, it was so good. It was like, I mean, I liked it
Because that character didn't really exist. So
right.
they literally
Yeah,
just-
it's like, oh yeah.
But that character shows up in a lot of movies because they need
Right.
that character to
That
exist
character,
for
yeah.
exposition.
Or a lot of times it's an amalgam of multiple people.
Yeah,
and then make it into
that's who
one,
that
'cause-
character was. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it was on the nose. But for me, I was like, okay, that's pretty
Okay, I
good.
get it,
Yeah, I get it. That's
That's
fun.
that's the right way to do fan service, right? You just subtly.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fun. Rami Malek is like, even on this watch too, like I mean, cannot deny his performance, and the rest of the actors that play the band, like when they show the footage, like the real footage from them performing, I'm like, they look so much
Spot
like
on,
them.
yeah.
I mean,
Brian
wow,
May,
just incredible.
Brian May,
especially.
Yeah. Man, and they're also so talented. And like I was just as emotional this time around. It's probably because doesn't help that I'm going through some stuff, but both of these films really like hit. When he like talks to his dad at the end too.
Oh,
It's just
yeah.
like, that really gets me. But the struggles with like drugs and like just the fact that he's like wanting to find love,
And those
is a
lonely
huge
moments.
thing.
Yeah.
Just like really, really hurt. So
Well, it brings more out from his music too. Like you
mhm.
get to understand why what was written was written.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but
How about,
yeah, all around, I still enjoyed it this time around. Yeah, but
awesome. How about
finding
you,
those
Janine?
little things,
Yeah.
It's always about those little things.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think my experience was very similar to Brian's in the fact
Mhm.
that like I loved it, thought it was so great, especially because I saw it at the Chinese theater. So it was like this
Yeah.
beautiful theater, seeing this big kind of concert movie and these big kind of musical numbers and things like that really colored my viewing experience. And then watching it again, and even kind of looking into what was fact and what was fiction, it ended up
Yeah.
feeling kind of emotionally manipulating.
Mm.
Because even learning that, he didn't actually tell them he had AIDS before Live Aid like that, and it wasn't this whole emotional thing. So the fact that they threw that in there just
Yeah.
felt kind of I didn't
Yeah.
like that. I don't think they even knew he had AIDS until a few months before he died.
Right.
So to kind of stick that into a moment and create something that wasn't really what it was.
Mhm.
And then
was
avoiding AIDS completely after that.
exactly. And so
Right.
that
Yeah.
was a little disappointing.
Yeah. Well, it kind of
Also,
doesn't feel earned either,
yeah,
because they kind of just
exactly.
threw it in there. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, and they never really ever broke up. They just kind of took a break. So it wasn't
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
so
And
just
they
playing
still
into
play as Queen today and would if Freddie was alive. Like, there's no
exactly.
doubt.
Exactly. Right.
Yes. So just those
Mhm.
kinds of moments felt very manipulative, emotionally, kind of just to prey on, oh yeah, this is what
Mm.
a biopic is supposed to do. So that's what we're gonna
Mhm.
do.
Mhm.
I think I saw something else about like them selling their van. That was never a thing that happened either. So it
Yeah.
was just very much to throw in there your typical underdog story kind of
Yeah.
thing. So just in learning a lot of things that didn't really happen and how like the band who was a part of, contributing to telling this story kind of let all these little falsehoods kind of pepper in, was kind of like,
Yeah.
but
They're
generally
building their legacy in a sense, though, right? Because this is what people
yes.
are going to remember more than the
Yeah.
articles they'll have to look
And more
up, I
than the
think.
truth of, the
Right.
uninteresting things that someone actually sought them out because they liked how they sounded. They didn't have to, you know, be destitute, before they
Right.
got there kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, a lot of the other emotional scenes really hit for me. Seeing the scenes of
Mhm.
him being really lonely. I loved the moment with him and that waiter Jim when he just asked him to kind of
Mm.
stay back and telling
Mhm.
him he needs a friend, and the kind of conversation they have. And him telling him, "Come find me when you love yourself." And,
Yeah.
we see
Oh,
him kind of
jeez.
sneakily have those moments of looking him up in the phone book before
Yeah.
he
Mhm.
finally
Yeah.
finds him. So all of that, if that's true or not, I don't know, but I didn't really
Right.
care because I thought that was kind of a sweet
Mhm.
thing for this very lonely person. The moments when he is calling people just to talk or come
Yeah.
over or
Oh,
hang out with him
yeah, I
and
know.
stay, and
Yeah.
everyone's too busy for him. I think it feels very
Ugh.
similar to what I talked about last week with Babylon and the characters really not knowing how to navigate those in between moments of their lives.
Mhm. Mhm.
They're on and they're at their best when they're on stage, when they're performing, when they're doing the thing that they do so
Yeah.
well. But outside of that, they just don't know how to navigate life, and
Yeah.
it's really difficult to watch. So I loved how they portrayed those scenes and those moments. And
Mhm.
yeah, the performance scenes were incredible. They felt very spot on to what actually happened in
Yeah.
those moments as well. So performance wise, great. How everyone looked, great. A lot
Mhm.
of the emotional beats did land for me, but ultimately there were a lot of things that just made me feel a little emotionally manipulated.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
Sure.
It did
Absolutely.
feel like does feel like there's like a template for a lot of biopics, I
Yeah.
think. And I think that's what a lot of people are getting, specifically like music. We're like, why has there been so many music related biopics? Like it's kind of crazy how they just have
Yeah.
so many like I felt
Yeah.
like so like I'm a big, Whitney Houston fan. So I was
Mhm.
like very excited to watch I Want to Dance with Somebody, and it felt very much like it's just this
Just
cookie cutter
generic.
thing.
Yeah.
That's another voice you cannot replicate. Like
Yeah.
it's not her singing, it's all Whitney,
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
stuff. And like because Whitney's voice is just you're not gonna do it justice, right?
Yeah.
But it's like I agree with Snitty about like yeah I kind of wish she would have like I don't know if Naomi Aki can even sing,
Yeah.
but she's not going to sound like Whitney,
Right.
but still
Yeah.
it had
But
these like weird
that's
moments.
okay. Like
Yeah, yeah,
you're
yeah.
telling
No,
the story
totally.
about the person's life. You're not trying to emulate their music.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
there's
yeah,
a difference.
yeah. Because then it comes across as
Um,
like, oh, you're just trying to do your best impersonation,
Yeah.
like
right.
And then it
thing,
feels
and
But
then it
all
see,
gets
yeah.
lost.
we're going to
Yeah,
get into this because
yeah,
this is
yeah.
interesting.
Right,
Had Freddie been alive during this film, this might have gone different, or he might have helped, right? He might have
right.
jumped in.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Also, depending on how his life went, for all we know, things could have derailed 10 years later. This is all speculation. You never know about
exactly.
people's
Yeah,
lives.
yeah.
Um,
I do want to talk about like how impressive it still is to watch the whole Live Aid sequence. Like
Yeah.
there was down to the attention to detail, down to like the Pepsis on the piano are the exact
Yeah.
same spots as they were during the real Live
Yeah,
Aid.
that's crazy.
Like if you there's like side by side coverage of the film and then
Mhm.
the actual Live Aid, and it's like they must have watched that whole thing
So many
like how many
times, yeah.
times
Oh yeah,
just to get
like you're
Everything.
watching this
so
quadrant,
good.
you're
Yeah.
watching this
Dude,
quadrant.
like yeah, no, it's like spot on. Everything on that stage is like where it's supposed to be. Yeah, that was incredible. But then also, like I had issues with some of the Live Aid stuff. Some of it just feels way too CGI. Like
When they're
that
panning
crowd
over the
is all
crowd and stuff.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
super like. And then also when it's like facing the crowd, like you see the actors, but then like it just wasn't. I mean, yeah, it was very obvious. It
Yeah.
was kinda
If this
CGI,
were the
but-
50s, they would have hired 50,000 extras.
Yeah, they would
Just to be there, yeah.
They would have done it. But
yeah.
and then they would have been like the actors, the extras in Babylon. That would have been,
Yeah.
that would have been great.
Yeah.
I can't not talk about that movie. Is there anything else you guys want to mention about Bohemian Rhapsody?
No.
No,
I feel the same way.
we
All
said it
right.
all.
I think I agree. Why don't we go ahead and rate it then, and we can move on to the other film of this evening. Let's do it in the same order. I'll start now. Conversations always seem to improve my ratings on films. I gave this a 5, a 2.5, if you will, on Letterboxd.
Mhm.
I'll give it a 6. I'll give it a 6, just because
Mhm.
I still feel like if somebody saw this for the first time and it's what got them into Queen, dope. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a great
Yeah.
thing.
No,
So
totally. Yeah.
the fact that it exists and can get people into Queen
Yeah.
alone.
I agree.
Brian.
Yeah. That was something else that was like that I loved about both these films. I love both these artists, so it was
Mhm.
like another thing that boosts the score for me is like the music. It's like how can you not like
Yeah,
I
get
just
into
love
it.
the
I mean, those
music, it's like
songs
so
come on,
good.
yeah.
Yeah. For me my score is going to be this time around an 8. So,
All right.
yeah.
All right. How about you, Jeannie?
I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10 on this second watch for me. Yeah, because just the manipulation, but again, the music, the
Bryan
emotional
Singer of it
beats,
all, like, yeah.
yes, and that guy, yeah,
Yeah.
just took it.
Yeah, that guy is
Yeah.
part of my lower rating by default. So 6, 7, 8. I don't think we've had a lot of
Yeah,
those.
look at that.
That's great.
Yeah.
So we're going to move on to Rocketman. This is, of course, another biopic. This one is the life story of Elton John, Sir Elton John, if you will.
Mhm.
And this one takes a very different approach than
Yeah.
Bohemian Rhapsody. This is
Yeah.
actually like a across the universe style,
Exactly. I was thinking the whole time. I'm like,
right? Musical,
yeah.
but instead of it being like
Dude,
the
yeah.
60s,
like a
it's Elton John's
fantastical
life.
musical. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So why don't we go in reverse order? Janine, what did you think of Rocketman? Was this your first viewing?
Yeah, this was my first full viewing because I was watching
Yeah.
it and some clips looked familiar to me, like the whole pool party kind of thing,
Mhm.
but I
Mhm.
didn't remember really anything else. So I think I had seen bits and pieces. So this was my first full watch through of the film. And I just was kind of wondering the whole time, why is this not like the default format for a musical biopic?
Totally. Right.
Like
Yeah,
you're telling
100%.
the story of a creative individual and
Yeah.
their music is obviously going to be a big part of the story. So why not structure it in
Mhm.
this way as a musical and like having
It's
these
so
set
good.
pieces and characters that aren't really there coming in and talking
Mhm.
to him and him talking to his younger self and things like that made it feel like a stage musical even.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So yeah, why not have this structure be the default for a musical biopic and tell this person's story this way?
Mhm.
So I absolutely loved that about this movie. I think Taron Egerton is an incredible singer, and I think because of Elton John's songs, it's easy if you're kind of in the same tonal range, you can kind of,
Yeah.
and because of his songs having this universal quality, I think if you can sit in that tone, you can sing his songs, and it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be, a
Dead
voiceover.
on Elton John.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I
Uh-huh.
still felt like it was Elton John singing, even though I
Totally.
knew it
Yeah.
wasn't, so it worked really well in this aspect.
Mhm.
And obviously, since he's still living, there was a more honesty there, obviously, because he probably
Yeah.
had a big part in helping tell this story.
And he was
So I
he had
didn't
he was
feel
one of the executive producers on it
Yes,
too, I
so
think.
I didn't feel the manipulation.
Yeah.
Right? This time
Yeah.
it felt
Yeah.
genuine, right?
Exactly. So from the costumes to just the story structure, the performances, how they used the songs in really interesting and different
Oh my
ways and
God,
peppered
yeah.
them in to
It
tell this
felt
story.
like they fit, right? Like the story was
Yes.
Right.
written for those songs, or
Yeah.
the other way. The
Yeah.
songs were being written for the movie almost.
Yeah, it was like,
Mhm.
doing a musical based off of very much like Across the Universe, like
Yeah.
making a musical around these songs
Mhm.
that fit that story. So yeah, I really enjoyed this film. I loved the structure of it. I loved how the music worked because I'm not even like a huge Elton John fan.
Hmm. Yeah.
But in hearing the songs in this context, I was like, I like more Elton John songs than I thought I did.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
knew more of them maybe than you thought you did.
Yes.
Probably, yeah.
Yes. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed this movie.
Mhm.
Awesome.
That's
Brian,
awesome.
what do you think of
Yeah.
Rocketman?
Yeah, loved it. Like this is my first time watching it too. I don't know why, like I just didn't get around to watching it.
Yeah,
I think maybe too, like the whole musical biopic of it all,
maybe
like kind
burnout.
of just getting like, ah man, another one. But yeah, it was like just like what Janine mentioned, like I was not expecting it to be this like musical within this biopic, And I think to like Janine's point about him, like Taron, first off, he was like so damn good in this movie. Like,
Yes.
man, just in every aspect, like just those the dramatic pieces, and then of
Mhm.
course the musical parts. Like he can sing. Funny, he's like sang another Elton John song in
And
In
sing.
and
Sing.
sing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I'm certain somebody was like,
you go, we can
Yeah,
play.
let's
oh, and
do
he
it.
looks
Yeah.
like him
So
when he was
good,
25.
yeah.
Get this
Oh
kid.
man,
Yeah.
so funny. Yeah. But I think to Janine's point about like him not having to sound exactly like John or Elton John was that they let other characters sing parts of Elton John's
Yes.
songs. So you
Mhm.
kind of like went along with that a little more, that okay, he doesn't sound exactly like Elton John. But even then, he's pretty
Pretty
damn
close. Yeah.
close. Like,
Yeah.
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 Yeah, no, I just like that was the biggest thing for me, was like just like also that opening scene where like, because it's like going back to his childhood, like he was very vivid and like everything else had this muted color tone
Yeah.
to it.
Mhm.
Like I was like, really love that. And like you can really
Yes.
see his,
It
Like
turned
the
like
his
dark
like they
costumes and
turned the
everything.
color
Yeah.
tone to like 50% even. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. It was like super desaturated,
Yeah.
and then eventually came back in, but love that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But again, this was another like emotional one for me. Just like again, a lot of it was like the addiction stuff. Like it was really hit when like, I mean, the opening scene is him walking into kind of like a meeting,
Rehab.
like a
Yeah.
12-step
Mhm.
almost, yeah, like rehab, and just talking, just listing off these addictions, and like for me, like I have, you know, dealt with people that struggled with addiction, and it just like, so immediately I'm like locked into it, already feeling
Yeah.
some kind of way, for Elton John. And then like his, you know, like search for love, and like the like terrible stuff his mom would say to him, like just that
Oh,
one liner, like,
yeah.
oh my God, like that really, yeah, that
And
really
his
hit.
dad
So
as well.
Bryce
Yeah.
Dallas
uh,
playing a
Kind of
bad,
creating a
like
whole
oh
new
my God.
family.
crappy
Yeah.
person is not
Yeah,
normal. I'm used to loving her. Like, oh, Bryce,
Yes.
you're
I know. Yeah.
a
I was
lovable
surprised to
person.
see her in that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, just really great. And I'm with Janine too. Like I think more movies need to do, because I like Across the Universe is like one of my favorite movies. Like what a genius, for me anyway. I think it's just a genius way to make a musical and
Yeah.
incorporate all these Beatles songs,
Yeah.
and in a different way too. Like a lot of them are done a different way, and I think
Mhm. At a different
Rocketman did the
beat
same
or
thing.
like
Yeah,
a different time or a
different
Yeah.
different
style. Like yeah.
note
Mhm.
or a key, like
Mhm.
all sorts of different changes. That
Yeah.
is really an interesting movie too, because have you ever seen the Julia Stiles made for TV movie, The 60s?
Oh no. Mm.
This was early in her career. I think it's like Save the
Yeah.
Last Dance era of her career. And it was,
Mhm.
if you watched the 60s and you watched Across the Universe, they took the plot points from the 60s.
Oh, funny.
Like, because these
Okay.
are things that really happened in the 60s, but then they
Right.
Yeah.
televised it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
They
yeah.
made it, streamlined it, and then they're like, oh, we'll just put this into a Beatles musical.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh wow, that's wild how that happened.
Interesting. Yeah.
But this does feel the same way. Where they're like
Funny.
Elton John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, really great.
I think the most profound part of the film, and this is, I think, far more profound than Bohemian Rhapsody. Rhapsody is just, here's Freddie Mercury. There's his life, and it's quite just straightforward from his 20s on. And this not only starts at his childhood and does that, go back to the beginning, but it also, while we're journeying through his life, he's journeying through rehab in such a way that he's
And
making
telling
these
that to other
discoveries
people.
as
Yeah.
he's telling the stories, right? And it's like, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. It's so brilliant that by the time you get to the end, spoilers, because this is a spoiler show, you realize that he's like not just at a 12 step, but he's like full blown in rehab and dealing with the blowout from that. And it's so powerful the way they started out the film and then ended the film in that way. I was shocked by learning that he was classically trained, and that he was kind of a savant in a sense, that he could just pick up the
Hear
keys
something
and
and
he sees the keyboard and he
Play it.
just knows what it means. I see the keyboard and I'm like, tell me what that means. Okay, I sort of understand.
I used to be able to
They
do
all look
that.
the same to me.
Like I get it, but like I don't
used to be
get
able
it.
to do that with
like
the violin when I played. Like I could just hear something and try to play it.
Oh my
But
god.
I'm very out of practice. So
Oh well,
I'm no
we
Elton.
might have a musical episode with Janine playing. I'm sorry, I'm just kidding. Watching him do like Your Song, which is one of my favorite Elton John songs, in his home with his family, it just, I don't know, there was something very intimate about that, almost like he was singing to his mom. I really like that. Every one of the songs really just kind of fits this beautiful tapestry of his life. And I think the bar scene when he's singing the blues, I think is it the blues that he's singing in that one? I think it's the blues. Maybe it's Honky Tonk. I don't remember the name of the song. One of his more kind of upbeat songs. And they stop the whole crowd for just a moment before the music hits, and then they all drop together. It's actually like an album cover of his that they brought to life. And then, of course, all the videos towards the end of the movie are Elton John videos where they just put Taron Egerton into them. So, which works. Like he looks like he belongs there. So it's the Taron Egerton, I think, if he sticks with it, is going to define his generation as an actor. I think he really has the chops to go a long way.
Definitely.
So yeah, it's a hell of a flick. I don't know if I ever should warn people when there's subject matters that I know are there, but I always pick movies based on how good they make me feel or how impactful they are for me. So that's why I pick Rocketman.
I think it depends. Like for me anyway, like I wouldn't need like a warning on some of that stuff. I think if there's like stuff that's like essay related stuff, I think that's a huge thing because a lot of times they show it, and or go too much into it. Like there was one horror film I watched where it was very much a revenge like horror film, but they like really focused in on the actual act of her. And I was like, there's no reason to, I don't know, it's kind of like not really glamorizing it, but just like
putting a little too much
didn't
emphasis
need
on it. Like
exactly.
We could have gotten the point without showing
right. The whole thing is about the revenge part, like it's so, but stuff like this, I don't know, like if necessarily needs that. It's still like I don't think it would have like hindered me at watching this film, knowing that there's like a lot of the drug, the addiction element of it, because they handled it really well.
I mean, even the
just,
scene
like,
when he
hard to
takes the
watch,
pills
like,
and jumps into the pool, that's an artfully handled scene as well. Like
exactly.
he sees this younger version of himself at the bottom of the pool and this whole kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I
like that.
I did love this. I love the scene. I think it was near the end too, where all the like everyone in his life kind of comes in. They're not really there, and they like, and then the younger version of him essentially representing like the inner child, because we like I'm very therapized, so we talk about doing inner child work, and that's what that was for, at least in my interpretation. I'm like, oh man, he's like literally hugging his inner child, and like
He
healing
wanted a
that
hug
part,
all
and like
along.
so
Well, he
really
did for himself what his father never would.
Never did for him.
And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
the
and
big
that's
thing, you know.
that's the idea of like doing inner child work is like you as the adult version have to kind of be have to give your inner child what your parents failed to do so you kind of
Yeah.
have to do that self-soothing of the inner child. Yeah, so
Yeah.
there's your free
No
therapy
doubt.
lesson for
Join us for more therapy on The Real Study
Yeah,
starting next week. It is free but not licensed, so take that as you will.
yeah,
Actually, I just
Plenty of
assumed
inner
that. I
child
don't know
books.
if you're a licensed therapist, Brian. You might
No.
be, for all I know.
no.
I'm kidding, of course.
My therapist jokes that I could probably be a therapist with how much therapy I've done. So yeah,
Well, thank you for
learning
trying.
vicariously,
Yeah,
right? You're
yeah,
there,
exactly.
so I've learned it because I've been there.
Yeah,
I
for
saw how
passing
they
the bar.
diagnosed me. I get it. I can at least diagnose this, right? I know
Yeah.
how to deal with it. One of the cool things that I thought was great about this film was that Elton John and Taron sat down, obviously because he's alive, and he was like,
Mhm.
"Hey, what do you want me to do with this?" Like, he's like,
Can you
"Look,
imagine?
it would be so hard. Like, I'm gonna
Yeah,
be you.
You're
like,
Elton John. Like I know.
Yeah,
what
so what
right,
do you?
you're a
What can
knight
I even
even,
do?
like,
I know.
yeah." But they did. They sat down, and Elton was
Yeah.
like, "Look, obviously you're going to be telling my story, but please bring you to the role. Bring parts of yourself to the role." It was really weird. This is going to sound really odd, but while watching the promo, there are certain clips in the promo that Tyler did where Taron looks just like Danny Masterson a couple of times, and I'm like, "Oh God, could he play Could he play that role in the movie that will inevitably get made about everything that's happening right now and Diddy and all of that?" Maybe Taron will make some money off of this. Let's hope. We'll see. Might be too old by the time it all breaks. That said, any other thoughts on Rocketman? Since I go on my weird tirade,
I don't think so. I do hope that I would love to see more like this. Like just
Yeah.
really lean into like this like more fantasy element and like
Creative and
a more like
use the
visual
music in different ways.
representation. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, of what is going on with his life at this time, and finding these like, that was just like, I don't know. I think too, because we're so used to like the formula of
Yeah.
biopic. I think when this thing comes out and you're just like, oh my God, I love it. And of course, then we're like, oh, I want more of it. And then eventually that would get old,
Yeah.
so maybe don't make everyone like this, but like
every
I'd like
other,
to see
we'll just
more.
normal.
Something similar to
Yeah,
this. At least just
normal
thinking
offbeat.
outside the box, because
Right.
and especially
Instead
and
of,
use
like-
the songs at least in a creative way, because we know
Yeah.
these songs so well.
Oh my
So to
God,
hear
yes.
them in different interpretations used to
Yeah,
say
love it.
something different, because obviously we kind of maybe have our
Mhm.
own idea or know the idea of what the song means.
Yeah.
So if you use it in a different context, it can mean multiple things and mean
Mhm.
something different to you that you didn't really notice before. So even if they find a creative way to use the songs differently, like this movie did, like that would be really cool.
Yeah.
No,
for
that's
sure.
a really good point. So now I want to see a Michael Jackson movie like this. I want to see his
That'd be
entire
Well, they're
cool.
making
library.
one.
I mean, they're making one.
But is it
It's-
like? But it has to be like. It can't be
Yes,
Bohemian
you.
Rhapsody. This is like the two standards for me. Like if it's Bohemian
know.
Rhapsody, I'm not gonna. I'm not that I'll hate it, but I'll just be like,
It'll feel very
okay,
formulaic.
you did it again.
Yeah.
And that's not a person you want to be formulaic with. That's like Elton
Right,
John
yeah.
in my
Oh,
like. You better like really get creative with that crap, or it's gonna ruin it.
Mhm.
So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and rate it. Janine, what do you rate Rocketman?
I give this a 9.5 out of 10.
Solid rating.
Yes.
All right. How about you, Brian?
Yeah, I'm gonna give the same 9.5 out of 10.
Nice. I cried a lot. I'm gonna watch it again.
Yeah.
It's a 10. Those
Yeah.
are the,
Nice.
that, you do those
Yeah.
two things happen, it's a 10 for me. So I'm easy to please, I guess, in that way. Or I'll hate a movie. I guess I'm not like I'm never like in the middle.
You're never in the gray area.
Except with Bohemian Rhapsody. I gave it a 6. I don't know. You take
Yeah.
what you will from that. All right. As always, do follow us on all social media. We are all on most social media, of course, the ones that are listed right up here. And we will be back next week. It looks like we're going to be doing Prey, the prequel to the Predator series, and then we'll also be doing Annihilation, which is another
Interesting.
sci-fi
Never
horror.
seen
So a couple of raw sci-fi
seen it?
horrors. You've never seen Annihilation?
Oh,
Ooh,
okay.
you are in for a treat. oh, this is gonna be fun. I gotta rewatch it. It's been a little while, but great play.
I need to rewatch it too because I wasn't a fan of it.
Ooh,
Oh,
Actually, yeah.
okay.
So I think on a rewatch, we'll see.
yeah, no, but that's the thing. You know, headspace
Yeah.
is half of the film. Like I swear,
Mhm.
it's you're in a bad headspace, you're gonna hate a movie, even if
Yeah.
it was good.
And I own
So.
Prey, so obviously,
Yes, so
Nice.
good.
you know, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll have those. We'll of course have more horror as the
Horror
time
month.
goes on. I know we're gonna do another set is gonna be an 80s horror. We're gonna do Meet the Creeps and
Oh,
what is it? Society. If you have not seen either of
Never
those,
seen
either
either.
of those.
they
Yeah.
are
Heard of 'em.
they're a lot to handle, but I think it's worth the trip. So we'll enjoy those. So and then we will be having a guest. I think I'm springing this on my panelists, but I don't think they'll care because it's one of our previous guests. Josh Lebeck will be back with us at the end of October to enjoy some time talking about some horror movies, and we'll go from there. All right. This has been season 4, episode 2 of The Real Study. We appreciate you guys being here, and we will see you on the next episode.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
No puns.